Hi, it's Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter, and welcome to Friday, December 24th and Career Coach Office Hours. I spend time Tuesdays at 9:15. I think with the new year, I'm going to make this Friday at 9:15 so there's consistency, uh, helping people with job search, hiring more effectively, managing and leading, resolving workplace issues. I take live Q&A through chat, and I'll simply say if you have a question, you can put it into chat or email it to me in advance of the show at thebiggamehunter@gmail.com. And in the subject line, please put the phrase office hours so this way I know what it's about. And before we start today, I just want to offer a coffee toast. And it's a toast for those of you who try to be great. You work hard, you care about your work, it matters to you day in and day out. And sometimes you feel undervalued and underappreciated. Sometimes you're passed over or your work is taken for granted. A toast for you. Be great. Don't listen to people when they say take it easy. Listen to yourself because you know you want to be great. And instead of telling people to take it easy at the end of the conversation or the end of whatever placebo remark they give you, end your conversations by saying, be great. So that's my opening toast for today. And if you've got a question for me, again, put it into chat. I don't expect many of you are watching today. If you are, that's fabulous. I love having viewers. I love having active participants. I'll cover your questions, even though I've got a bunch to respond to. So with that, why is everyone hiring, but it's so difficult to get an interview? Well, that's pretty easy. The answer is they haven't relaxed standards. They're still looking for whatever it is they're looking for, and they're not compromising in any way. So, with that, you're out there trying to find work. You're sending out resumes because it's pretty clear to me you're applying. You're not networking your way to get interviews, even though that's the most effective way to get them. And thus, you think you're getting interviews, you're not getting results. What gives? And the answer is you're not meeting the standards that they've set for it, and they haven't compromised in any way. So that's why that's going on. Next question. Would you reject someone based on how much money they make? I don't know if this is a dating question or a career question. I'm going to deal with it as a career question, as a hiring manager might, and simply say, I'm not a dating expert. I'll leave that to others. I'm a career expert. And from my experience in recruiting for so many years, yes, you reject people based upon the salary they're looking for. Why? Because you've got a budget. You're not prepared to pay them $1 gazillion jillion dollars. You want to pay them what's within your budget. And they have to have certain skills and experience in order to be qualified. And if they're looking for a lot more, what are you wasting your time for? That's what you're doing. You're wasting your time talking to people who you can't hire because they're not willing to join within your budget. So I remember so often, this is while I was working in recruiting, you have a salary requirement from the client. They say, and I'm just picking a number, a range at random, 110 to 130. And you have a candidate at 150 who says, I can do that job. Why can't they pay me 160, 175? And the answer is, it's not in their budget. You go to a car dealership, you've got a budget. They're not going to sell you the car for less than what their cost is or less than what they want to sell it for. You're the same way. So this is why, very simply, money matters to employers when they're interviewing. Do prospective employers really care about job hopping? Yes and no. They want to understand why the job hopping occurred. Is it that you're a flake, or because that's the way they think, you're flaky and you have no perseverance or persistence to get through difficult times, because there are always difficult times in some way, and you're just going to bug out. Or maybe you were a contractor and it was a 3 month assignment here and a 6 month assignment there, in which case the question is, why aren't you getting that across to them in your resume or in your interview? That's one issue. And the second part of it is they need to understand that you're looking for something full time. So, do employers care about job hopping? When it's unexplained, absolutely. When it is explained, it has to be explained in a way that they're going to understand, get you, believe you, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So, it's really on you to communicate that. And you can start in your resume by aggregating dates for consulting or contract assignments or temp assignments, so that this way they can see it clearly. And number two, when you get to the interview, being congruent in what you tell them, being sincere, looking and sounding when you make statements about why it is you're looking for something full time. How do you improve the coding quality in a problematic company? And they describe the tech skills and what have you associated with it. I think there are two things that you can do. And I want to be clear, I'm not a developer. I've never written I may have written a line of code, but I'm not a programmer, and I don't speak from the perspective of managing a programming organization. But I do know from experience in talking to people that they start to look at ways to create incentives. And the first incentive is you pay people based upon improved software quality, right? Bad quality, bad reviews, bad salary increases. That's pretty clear cut. You tell them that you're going to start emphasizing quality over lots of lines of code. And if that's a problem for them, don't let the door hit them in the butt. And that may wind up causing you to lose some people, but so what? So what? The third thing, and I think it's actually the most important one, is what do you do going forward? And that is, you think in terms of what your hiring process has been like and how it allowed this to occur. How did people get hired who were not competent to write quality code? That's on you as well. It's not on the staff, that's on you as a manager. You hired incorrectly. And number four is, how did you as a manager tolerate poor quality for as long as you did? And what can you do to get better about this? Again, part of this is about you communicating to them what the expectations are. And you can do that in interviews too. But it's also about you as a manager and how you put up with this and how you can get stronger and more dynamic. I'm not talking about angry or bullying or what have you, but insistent upon great quality. Learn how others do it. Find out from peers what they've done to improve the quality of the code that they're getting from their people. And if this is a systemic problem, that is an organizational problem, then all of you have an issue here that you need to work on resolving, sharing best practices so that you get better results. If your job application still says under review 2 months after you applied, is that a rejection? Probably. Because after all, if it's still under review, no one got all excited about it to want to meet with you, right? So don't hold out hope that there's going to be an interview here. Have you developed any quick interview techniques to eliminate the liars, fakers, and BS? I'll speak as a recruiter because I did that for as long as I did and filled a lot of positions. And you start to learn how to smell BS when you start digging in deeper and understand some of the problems they faced, the challenges, the issues that they came up with. How did you go about, you pry and you dig in and you ask follow-up questions and you ask follow-up questions to the follow-up questions and you start to notice the perspiration. And from that, you start to pick up on the fact that there's some BS being thrown my way. And if you ask, I don't understand, explain that to me in a different way. Then people who know how to do stuff can explain things in multiple ways for different audiences, right? So I did a lot of work in technology. There's a lot of technologists who can operate uh, dealing with technical and non-technical users. So I would identify myself as a non-technical user, and then I would illustrate some of my ability to query from a technical standpoint. And they got the hint real fast that I knew what I was talking about, and they need to up their game. And if they couldn't, I knew this was BS. So very simply, you dig in deeper and deeper and deeper. Is it quick? Actually, it is. It's a lot quicker than hiring them and then finding out then, isn't it? Let's see now. What would you answer to a job interview where they ask you what you like least about your current job? A question I hate because, frankly, it's too revealing. Too often people buy in and believe that what the firm really wants is the truth. And the truth is, you happen to like your job, but you want to make more money. You want to work for people who appreciate you more, whatever it is. So, what I hate about my current job is what brings me here today. So, I'm looking for an organization where I can learn, work hard, get ahead, feel appreciated and valued. My sense is that your organization is one that has the potential to do that. Without that, eventually I feel undervalued and underappreciated. And thus, these are the problems in my current organization. And what I've done is be very casual about it, explaining my reasons for looking for work and what brought me to their office that day or on that Zoom call that day. And that makes it easy for them to get it. So, by the way, if you're watching or listening and you have a question for me, feel free to put it into chat. I'd be happy to answer your questions. Next one. What is the number one answer to get from the interview question? Why do you want to work here? Now, when I was doing recruiting, what I would do is tell people to answer the question, why do I want to work here? Why wouldn't someone want to work here? And it was a performance. And I'd have them list 2 or 3 things about the firm. Like I knew the New York Times would ask that question on interviews. So I had people suck up to the interviewer then and sound excited about, why wouldn't someone want to work at the New York Times? You're an organization that's a leader in your industry. You're a great place. Everyone loves working here. You flatter the heck out of them, which is why it's a stupid question to ask. Now, for leaders, it's different. For leaders in organizations, you talk with them about what the search firm has told you about the role, the nature of the challenges the organization has, and that this really appeals to you to solve this issue for this organization. You've always had your eye on this firm, and thus you want to be in a position where you help them solve problems. And in doing so, are able to put people forward. Let me back up there for a second. You want to help this organization solve problems like the search firm has outlined. If there are more, you want to know about those too. You've had your eye on this firm as well as an organization where you felt you could make an impact. So it's the challenges that are so important to you in how you address this. So it's not about sucking up. It's about what you've been told, and it's the nature of the organization and how it affects you. and how you believe you would have an effect. So I just received this question. How do you respond to an interviewer who inquires about a role you had 6 years ago and is looking to hire the exact same role now, but you've actually changed how you feel slightly, and now you're more on one side of the business versus being a PM? So to me, what I would do is just lay it out very clearly. Years ago, I was doing such and such. Today, I'm doing Y. It's different. And yeah, I'm less qualified to do that role. But if you think I can do it and you think your client would be interested, then by all means, put me forward. If this is with the organization itself, if the first one's with the search firm or with the corporate recruiter who might have reached back to you, you let them make the call. Now, if you're not interested, that's different. And you can say, I've kind of moved on from that role. I'm now doing such and such. If you have a role along those lines, great, because I was really impressed with your organization, and I'd certainly be interested in doing something more along those lines. And I know that's not what the job is that you reached out to me about, but maybe you could update your system, enter a few relevant keywords. I can forward a resume that would allow you to update it. And such. And now we have a follow-up here that says, I told them I can do the job, but they got angry with me. I was interested in the role, but I couldn't get that point. They cut them right off. People are stupid. And rudeness is ridiculous. I'll simply say, on their side, in their defense, and I don't know what the conversation was like between the two of you, or the three or the four of you, whether this was a corporate recruiter or an agency recruiter, because there is a difference between the two and how they think. Let's say you've been away from the role for 3 years. They're less likely to want to submit you or to interview you because you've been away from it for a long time. And you may not have done enough to demonstrate that your knowledge base is still strong in that area. I would think this is an agency recruiter who did this and stupidly didn't stay long enough to listen to your defense. They also may not have thought that they could sell it, but there's no reason to end the conversation abruptly, because I'm assuming you weren't rude to them and you didn't treat them like they were stupid, right? So as a result, they're getting you off the phone is basically their way of saying, I don't think you're qualified. And it's a childish way of doing it, but that is what they did. Pamela, I hope that was helpful to you. I think the only thing you can do is deal your cards openly, face up, honestly, and thus be able to be forthright with them. Now, Paula, I'm not sure what you're communicating. Could you write it out for me, Paula? I'd be happy to answer your question if you're a little bit clearer with what you're putting forward to me. And Pamela, thank you for the Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays message. And she says, it does help. That's all I'm here to do, is to help. So with that, Paul, if you want to repose your question, by all means do so, and I'd be happy to address it. Next question. Is interviewing at a FAANG company intimidating, especially if one isn't prepared for coding challenges? Any interview is intimidating if you're not prepared. That's the fact of it. You're not qualified, and thus you feel overwhelmed. You don't think you can get your points across. They don't seem interested in what you have. They're interested in what they have, and you don't have it, and you can't get it across. That's the reason why it's intimidating. So Don't put it on them. Your lack of preparedness is the reason why it's overwhelming. And I'll simply say, if um, if a firm, well, I'm going to leave it there. I think that's a proper answer that to say any firm is intimidating if you're not prepared. Is a 4-page resume too long? Is the next question. And the answer is yeah, who's going to read a 4-page resume? There are exceptions, but from 99% of you, 4 pages is too long. When we were actually reading paper, there was a chance that people would get to page 3, never to page 4. Because how are we doing it now? We're scrolling, we're hitting page down. We're looking for what we want to see as early as we can in the document in order to make sure that someone is qualified for the job. And if you're making them go to page 4 to find it, you're not qualified. Your experience isn't current and relevant to them. They care about the last decade. Anything longer than that is ridiculous. Now, academia is different. I want to be clear about that. An academic resume is probably longer because you have your publications there, and there are probably lots of them. But generally, a long resume is not going to be interesting to them. It's just going to be something that they're going to ignore, they're going to mutter about, they're going to make fun of. I have 1 or 2 more questions, and I just want to remind you, if you have a question for me, put it into chat, and I'll address it today as well. 2 more questions, okay? Would you be burning a bridge if you withdrew your application before the on-site interview? Generally, no. However, there are exceptions. If you think about it, if they're inviting you for an on-site, they're scheduling people, and if you schedule a few days before, they have time to empty people's schedules up, open up the time slots, people can do other work. If you cancel it the morning of, the day before, that's a problem because you're leaving people with empty time in their schedule, hoping that you are the one that would serve them. And you're not. By serve them, I mean fill their position. So I'll simply say, for you, you made a mistake if you did it last minute. And you didn't convey that, well, something has happened with someone I helped on Tuesday's show. They had a death in their family. And they didn't tell the firm that there was a death in their family. So there was no way of knowing it. All they had was non-responsiveness on their part. Non-responsiveness is a problem for organizations. So if you canceled last minute or after they booked the airfare, and it's a non-refundable ticket, and you're canceling last minute or canceling after they've booked the flight, that's a problem. Just like it is if you cancel last minute. So, that's the best answer I can really give you. Don't pull that kind of crap and expect that you're the victim. You're not. What you are is someone who is rude to them, and they might not like it. That is burning bridges. Last question as of now. How can I get a job in tech recruitment without experience? Go to work for an agency. A lot of them will hire people without experience and train. You can also start as a sourcer. That is finding candidates for a tech recruiting firm and having their recruiters find people. I have a friend who's going to work for a firm. She worked as a recruiter for many years, retired, is going back part-time, and she's going to do sourcing, identifying candidates who are qualified to do roles and turning it over to someone else. Different firms do different things. Some people do research, some people do interviewing. You're going to be a trainee and you're not going to make a lot of money for a while. Agency life is tough. It is tough. No one has time Very few people train adequately, and you may bounce around from agency to agency until you get it. But you start on the agency route rather than the corporate route, and you pay your dues, learn your craft, figure out stuff, um, and do things that allow people to see your value and bring you on board. But again, it starts off with go to work for an agency, make your mistakes, pay your dues. Under the wire, we've got another question. How can I get a work from home IT support specialist job? I'm semi-disabled. So part of that, Richard, is around networking and relationships with people you've worked with in the past that allow you, that know you, like you, trust you, respect you, and believe that you can help. So that becomes way number one. Way number two is there are firms that advertise positions for support, working remotely. It's more help desk related work where you're taking calls from users. You might look at LinkedIn that now has a work from home option or a remote work option to see if there are positions there. There's also a website, Flex Jobs, and I'll have a link to it in the show notes. It's a paid service, but they do identify positions that are work from home. You might also contact consulting firms in your area. Some firms will advertise, some firms will want to check you out, maybe have you do a support case or 2 or 5 in order to see whether you're really competent. But contact firms who do that kind of support to say, hi, I'm looking for a remote support position. This is what my background is. Do you hire people to do remote support or to back up some of the people you have in the field to do the work behind the scenes to get problems solved? Those are really your best choices. And the fact that you're semi-disabled, frankly, becomes irrelevant in those circumstances because these are organizations who hire remote workers. And if they press, why don't you want to work on site? Not my time in life to do that. I'll simply say, for me right now, working remote is the case. And I'll also say, Richard, that you're going to kiss a lot of frogs before you find that prince or princess. And as such, you'll get rejected far more often than you're going to get said yes to. But these are the ways to do it. And again, if you wait till a little later in the day, I'll have that link to Flex Jobs in the show notes on YouTube. And it'll show up. I think it'll show up on LinkedIn once I put the show notes in, but on YouTube, it'll definitely be there. Any other questions? I got an LOL. I'm not sure what that was for, but Richard, I'm glad I amused you. So I'm Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter. Hope you found today's show helpful. If you did and you're watching on YouTube or LinkedIn or wherever, share it, click the like button, comment on it because comments help the algorithms identify stuff as being worthwhile. I also want to say that you can connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/IN/the Big Game Hunter. I understand why Richard now did the LOL. It was about kiss a lot of frogs. Thank you. I appreciate it. We live in snarky times. I didn't know if you were being snarky, so I appreciate it. I'll just simply say I'm glad this was helpful to those who put messages into chat. If you're watching on YouTube or elsewhere, share it, leave a comment, particularly the comments, because all the social media sites like comments. They view the material as more competent if there are comments there. And of course, you can share it as well. Visit my website, thebiggamehunter.us. I've got thousands of posts there that you can watch, listen to, or read that'll help you. You can also schedule time for a free discovery call or schedule time for coaching. I'd love to help you. There's also information about my courses. And if this is not the right time for that, just put the address in your phone, which again is thebiggamehunter.us, and my name, Jeff Altman, and you can circle back to me in another time. Lastly, connect with me on LinkedIn. My address there is linkedin.com/IN/the Big Game Hunter. Hope you have a terrific day. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. I'll be back Tuesday at 9:15 for more. And in the meantime, be great. Take care.